The Crew franchise has come a long way, from being a dark and gritty themed racing game to a fun festival styled racing game. I still remember watching the trailers of The Crew for the first time and being extremely excited. Also, by the way, these trailers were some of the best game trailers of all time in my opinion. Anyway, the franchise does have some overall ups and downs, and focusing on the Crew Motorfest, a lot has changed with the question of what's being left behind, what state is the franchise now in, and what lies ahead. One of the biggest selling points of the Crew was its huge map. Just think about it. You watch a beautifully crafted trailer of a racing game and you realize you'll be able to drive across the entire USA, while your car transforms according to the different terrains. I was all in. The vast map was the identity of the game along with the different disciplines which was heavily emphasized in the trailers. While this huge map was a big part of the previous games, it was pretty unexpected and saddening to see that Motorfest would leave it behind. While the Motorfest's map is detailed unlike Crew 2, which was a huge graphical downgrade from what we saw in the initial trailers, there was something about the enormity of the previous map. Maybe it was the different landscapes you'd see while driving, or the long races spanning across different cities, or it was just the endless driving with nowhere to go. I think the map was the franchise's identity, which it left behind. Anyway, while I miss the old map, I think there are some positives in the new map, like the beautiful scenery and sunsets you see while driving. And the map is far more detailed, which is a really good step up from what we saw in the Crew 2. But I've noticed something: the more I play Motorfest, the more I realize while the map is smaller, it isn't really being used. This is a huge problem with a game that I want to love for its positives, but I just can't because of its emptiness. While it is appealing to drive cars and ride bikes, explore the beautiful map, play around with different disciplines in Motorfest, the sheer emptiness of the game makes it equally jading and irksome. Let's start with the presentation and overall structure of the game. The content in the game is essentially playlists for single player experience and 2 multiplayer modes. I am going to focus on single player experience mode. The playlists are basically a set of events connected to a specific theme. I think the presentation of playlists is pretty good. The introductory videos of each playlist are a good addition, and it does shed some light on cars and their history as well, which I really like. Adding to this, collaboration with the likes of Hoonigan and Donut Media really enhances the experience and makes the playlist something to look forward to. The problem lies with the fact that the whole single player experience of this game is tied to these playlists only, which really don't take much time to complete. And after you get done with these playlists, there isn't much to do. Unlike the previous games, there is no story. Even Crew 2 didn't have much of a story, but it did enough to add to the progression. Above this, the replayability of this game is also locked behind playlists, which isn't enticing and gets really repetitive as the races itself are kind of repetitive in the first place. This brings me to one of my major points of the map not being used in the right way. The map is big enough to have some good long races while you enjoy a beautiful view. The previous games used the map to their advantage and had races spanning across different cities. Moreover, there's a huge lack of content which makes the game empty. While the activities page gives off the impression as if there's just too much to do, there isn't really. Once you get done with the playlists, you can just chase challenges which do offer some good rewards, but there isn't anything new or anything different. It gets clear pretty soon that the game lacks good content. Even the multiplayer system suffers from the same issue. There is just one good mode. I don't know who even plays Demolition Derby. Also, I don't know why would anyone even play that mode when Wreckfest exists. I think that's also one of the issues of this game, that it seriously lacks focus. There are so many disciplines in this game, ranging from cars and bikes to planes and boats, some of which either feel unnecessary or badly implemented. There is no real reason or incentive to use planes and especially boats. I think the game should have kept its focus on quality rather than quantity. Along with all this, Ubisoft clearly was inspired by Forza and thought it could make the crew similar to that. Ubisoft forgot that Forza Horizon thrives on a huge multiplayer base, and hence the game stays relevant and has the highest player count of any racing game. The crew doesn't have that kind of player base, and it definitely can't build it this way. It bothers me so much that Motorfest doesn't have a story. It could have made its place in story-driven racing games and established itself. While this is a big chunk of the issues of the game, there are a lot of positives which make it more infuriating because I want to enjoy the game, but it just can't keep me hooked. The car models in this game look great with a huge catalog, although a lot of cars are just special editions. The sound design in the game is pretty good. The engines, turbos sound great and are distinct. I really like the handling this time. It does vary and gives cars some character. Cars feel like there's some weight in them. The body roll and inertia of the car is far more noticeable than in 2. In Crew 2, for comparison, cars felt more rigid. Bikes also feel great to ride. Adding to this, they really improved drifting this time. It's pretty fun to drive the Unicorn. And that's exactly why it's more infuriating. Overall, it's a great game mechanically and visually, but it is being held back by the amount and type of content. Every time I sit down to play, I feel there's just nothing really to do. The game feels empty. The handling of the cars is great, driving experience is fun, but the game is being hugely held back by the content. There's no story, and unlike The Crew 2, there's just no content. The playlists are just too short to keep me hooked. It's just boring after a point. After completing the playlists, which doesn't really take long, there's just nothing to do. I hope Ivory Tower notices these issues with the game and addresses them. Even if they release a playlist from time to time, it is still not engaging enough. The game is just bland and boring. The huge scenic island is a wasted resource. Even though I want the crew to return to its roots and look at what made the game fun and expand on that, instead of copying a successful franchise like Forza Horizon, there's little hope of it actually going in that direction.